Welcome back, persistent hikers, to Glimpses of our California Parks. Today we will visit the San Diego region of our Golden State, encompassing 19 of over 420 diverse public, state, and federal parks and their related units. This GOCP video number 26 will examine some of the 32 historic 19th century buildings found inside the park. Located within the heart of San Diego County, this park unit was established in 1968 to protect the historical buildings of early San Diego, 1821 through 1872, California's first European settlement. Old Town San Diego State Historic Park is a 230-acre state historical public accessible park maintained by the California State Park System. The persistent hiker documented this park unit in the month of January 2025 and hopes this short video and informative commentary will entice you and yours to come visit this state park unit in the near future. Entering the park by way of the main Wallace Street entrance, the Old Town Spanish aura quickly draws us inside. We enter the open plaza area, ship's mast flagpole in the distance, on our way to the visitor center, the Robinson Rose building. Originally built in 1853 as a single-story adobe, and attorney James Robinson purchased it for his law office and enlarged it into a two-story with wooden sidings and adobe plaster. The building later developed into its town's commercial hub of varying businesses and rental outlets. Later, a businessman named Lewis Rose purchased it as a residence, thus the name Robinson Rose Building. In 1874, a fire destroyed part of the roof, and it fell into ruins until 1989, when the Park Service reconstructed it. The building now serves as the park's Visitor Information Center. Inside, we find some park historic relics, plus a large diorama of the Old Town San Diego as it appeared in 1872. Once back outside, we observed many diverse regional plants, shrubs, and trees on our exploration around the 19th century town. The cacti and other floral inside the park were displaying a color exhibition all throughout the town, even in January. As I take you on a visual tour of the Old Town complex, the adobe buildings, the displays, the museums, and the shops, let's take the time to review the early inhabitants of this historic site, beginning with the indigenous people who preceded us, the Kumeyaay. These indigenous people, the local clans that inhabited these lands for thousands of years, lived in small independent bands, moving as the season and available of food dictated, from coastal tide pools and canyon floors to mountain slopes and back. Although semi-nomadic, each clan had a primary village territory identified by natural landmarks the Europeans never recognized. If the natives knew then their fate at the hands of these alien invaders, Old Town San Diego might never have happened. But such was not to be. The Kumeyaay, as with most of the indigenous people of Southern California, were to suffer a horrid fate. Their ultimate destiny would undergo Spanish conquistadors, mission proselytization, infectious European diseases, Mexican landlord exploitation, systematic racism, settler encroachment, military confrontations, bogus U.S. government treaties, land confiscation, manifest destiny justification, forced relocation, reservation inequality, and finally, compulsive culture assimilation. In my opinion, no other Native Americans in the U.S. suffered such a plethora of adverse circumstances leading to their ultimate decimation as did the indigenous people of Southern and coastal California. Although our generation cannot change the atrocities executed amongst the indigenous people in the past, we should never forget those that suffered and lost the most, and at least honor their struggles to survive. Why did the Spanish come north? During the latter half of the 18th century, Russian commercial activity in North Pacific and difficulties with the Indian tribes along the northern frontiers of New Spain convinced the Royal Spanish government to colonize Alta, Upper California. Located midway between the Spanish frontier in Baja California and the future port of Monterey, San Diego played a vital strategic role. In 1769, Captain Portola and Father Juniper Sierra founded the first military garrison of Royal Spain and the first Catholic Franciscan mission in Alta California on Presidio Hill overlooking the San Diego Bay. As European settlement increased, relations with Kumeyaay deteriorated. Wooden plows and grazing cattle destroyed their traditional sources of edible plants, while efforts to convert the people to Christianity and fear of forced labor in the mission further alarmed the village leaders. In 1774, the mission was relocated 6 miles inland to its present location. This set the stage for the first Indian uprising in Alta California on November the 5th, 1775, when 600 warriors attacked and burned Mission San Diego, Acala to the ground. Over time, Kumeyaay resistance weakened as a result of the disease and many going into hiding. By 1811, the rebuilt mission in the interior had confiscated over 55,000 acres of land from the native inhabitants. Indian neophytes, naive mission converts, comprised the workforce. They tended the crops and orchards, herded cattle, tanned the cowhides, wove cotton cloth, spun wool, and made nearly everything from blankets and clay pots to candles and leather skirts for saddles. The neophytes learned Spanish and recited Catholic doctrina and other religious devotions. The Catholic mission forced assimilation, harsh living conditions, diseases, and abuse were responsible for more fatalities amongst the natives of California than any other reason. Yet the proselytization continued. Teach them your language, read them your book. Teach them to believe, then they're easier to hook. The hillside fort gradually developed into a settlement, a presidio, with adobe walls, barracks, commander's house, chapel, cemetery, utility building, and ramparts for heavy brass cannons. By the 1790s, there were nearly 175 people living behind its walls. The garrison's 50-odd leather-jacketed soldiers, Spain's elite mounted dragoons, protected the heatherlands and stood watch over the remaining indigenous people. In the last days of Spanish rule, older soldiers who had received garden plots as payment for their service began to settle on the sandy plain below Presidio Hill. By the 1820s, a cluster of dark brown adobes, roofed with thatch and dried mud, and a patchwork of vegetable gardens and orchards occupied the northwest side of the plaza. Although Mexico gained its independence from Spain in 1821, the people in San Diego lived much as they had before, few even knew that a revolution had occurred. San Diego developed into a trading outpost because of its strategic location near a large sheltered bay. From 1825 to 1831, it was the capital of Alta California. After the government removed control of the missions from the Franciscan missionaries and distributed mission ranches, fields, and other economic enterprises to the California families, ranching became the region's boom economy. Throughout the 1830s and 1840s, ships from around the world unloaded everything from luxury items to necessities, such as leather goods, iron tools, copper pots, rope, sugar, buttons, and threads. These goods changed hands 3 miles from Old Town, where they were traded for dried cow hides, tallow, and brandy. Cow hides, leather dollars, sometimes referred to as the California banknotes, became the standard rate of exchange, worth about $2 a skin. The rancho age was one of startling contrasts and shifting fortunes. By 1837, the Presidio's garrison had been reduced to a half-dozen soldiers. The missions likewise was a shadow of its former glory. Its great herds had been slaughtered, its storerooms looted, its gardens and buildings neglected, and the Indian neophytes cast adrift. The breakup of the missions created a new landed elite, the Californians. In the space of 12 years from 1834 to 1846, Alta California's governor awarded at least 39 private land grants in the San Diego region alone. The mission Indians benefited little from the breakup. Most of them lost their promised grants of land as the mission lands and livestock became part of the great rancheros. The Mexican ranchero era was short-lived. By the 1860s, legal costs to defend Mexican land claims in U.S. courts, high property taxes, and successive droughts led to the breakup of the ranchero system. On May the 13th, 1846, the United States declared war against Mexico. The Dragoon forces loyal to Mexico lay siege to Old Town, which was occupied by U.S. troops. The arrival of reinforcements in November quickly ended the threats. A U.S. flag now flew from the propped-up ship's mast in the middle of the square. Fighting between the Mexican loyalists and the U.S. troops ended in California in early 1847 with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed on February 2, 1848. At the end of the wars, immigrants poured in from all directions. Old Town San Diego began taking on an American transformation. During the gold rush, Old Town became an important stopover for thousands of miners en route to the gold reels and central Sierra foothills. Adobes on or near the plaza were remodeled and converted into commercial enterprises to cater to the largely male population. Prefabricated wood frame buildings were reassembled in San Diego. The newcomers introduced new civic institutions, new legal and judicial concepts. In 1850, the town built its first jail, and following year published its first newspaper, a weekly called the Herald. Once the gold rush ended, the town fell on hard times. Businesses closed, people left, and nature wreaked havoc. One by one, the landmarks disappeared from the old plaza. In the decades that followed, Old Town languished in the shadows of its past. Renewed interest in California Spanish and Mexican heritage sparked Old Town's revival in the early 20th century and led to the restoration of Casa de Estudillo. The opening of Presidio Park in 1929 on the hill overlooking Old Town heralded a new era. After World War II, the city of San Diego introduced a plan to set aside Old Town as a historic community. The campaign to create a park gained momentum during the 1950s with support from descendants of early families and civic organizations. In 1968, Old Town San Diego became a state historic park. I acknowledge the park's historic guide, Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, and Dictionary.com for their informative information used to produce this narrative. We give special thanks to our California park system for protecting this historic site for future generations. At least 12 different flags have flown over California throughout its history, and it was here, Old Town San Diego, that the greatest transformation of all occurred. Plan on spending an entire day here with the family. There's lots to see and do in Old Town San Diego. Hope you enjoyed this park adventure. Take the time to visit our sponsors and become a monthly donor, assisting us in documenting each of our diverse federal and state California parks. By becoming a member of the Persistent Hikers and wearing our Glimpses patch, you are informing the young generation that we seniors still have the capability, although limited, to enjoy our parks just as much as they can. Until our next California park adventure, happy trails.